Okay, so for our first keynote speaker this morning, umaga. So, kilala natin dyan. So, the founder of Power BI Pilipinas and Senior Manager at TTEC Digital, we have Sir Tony Kua.
The topic for today is the powers behind the power. External tools of Power BI Desktop. So to those who are intermediate to advanced, maybe you already know what Power BI external tools are. This will be more of a walkthrough on how I use external tools in Power BI. We will be discussing DAX Studio, ALM Toolkit, Measure Killer, Tabular Editor, and do not worry, I will be sending out the slides. Dumadami. Ang feeling ko hindi ako yung pinipicturean. I will be sending them out as BIDs.
For me, si DAX Studio pa rin yung the most efficient whenever someone asks me, pwedeng pahingi ng lahat ng measures sa report mo. Lahat ng DAX calculations. So easily, DAX Studio can do that by opening, when you go to your DAX Studio, go to Functions, DMV, sorry, nalimutan ko, DMV, sorry. You go to DMV, you just search for measures. And you will see one entry that says MD Schema Measures. Double-click on that. Sorry, dapat dinelete ko muna yung luma ko. Ulitin natin lahat. Backspace ko yan, para clear to. Double-click on MD Schema Measures. And you'll have select star from $system.md schema measures. All you need to do now is run it. Pag nirun ko siya, lalabas na dito sa baba, you'll see the measure name, the measure unique name, which is kasama lang naman yung table dyan. Pero as I scroll to the right, yung mga DAX ko, yung laman ng DAX. Now, ang question, paano yan kinaka-copy-paste? Easy. You just go to results, go to static, and run it again. Pag nirun mo again, tatanungin ka na where you want to save it. So I can just save it on my desktop, call this pizza measures, hit enter, nawala, nasa desktop na pala. Double click, and say tada, in like what, 5 seconds, I can give you all, kahit 500 measures pa yan dyan. It exports it that easy. Tapos yan, naka-wrap text ka na rin. Switching back, ALM Toolkit naman. So your ALM Toolkit simplifies the development cycle by facilitating dataset comparison, code merging, target deployment, blah, blah. So, nung wala pang mga GitHub si Power BI, hindi pa siya integrated doon, whenever we collaborate, si ALM Toolkit yung ginagamit. Kasi ALM Toolkit allows you to compare two Power BI reports and know what's the difference between them. So, Measure Killer naman. Measure Killer optimizes datasets by identifying and removing unused measures and columns, thus streamlining your model performance. From the name itself, it kills measures. So, Tabular Editor naman tayo. Enhances data modeling, development, workflows with features like bulk editing, calculation groups, scripting, blah, blah, blah. Best practice analysis. So, si Tabular Editor yung medyo gamit na gamit ko, and it kinda outshadowed DAX Studio kasi si DAX Studio, even then, back then, ang problem ko with DAX Studio was that it does allow me to look at measures, it does allow me to type in my measures, pero it does not allow me to write those measures to the model. Tabular Editor allows me to write new measures into my model. He is the founder of AI Ethics, and in my opinion, the name as far as AI in the Philippines is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, Doc Ligot.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is completely unplanned. Okay, so this is the crux of today's presentation. I don't want to make it too technical, but this is really the problem that we're trying to address. No, it's AI ethics. So I don't know if you can see the slides. No, upper left hand, lawyer used ChatGPT as Google. It's asking for cases in their for his pleading. not realizing that ChatGPT manufactured fake cases, almost got himself disbarred. And then finally, although again, probably a topic of another meetup, you can jailbreak a chatbot and make it do bad things. In fact, that's a class that I teach. So this is all just in the last 12 months alone. So this is really what's driving what I would say the fears of artificial intelligence. So in no particular order, people are worried about jobs, worried about cheating, they're worried about copyright, they're worried about monopolies, privacy. This caricature of the Terminator is actually it's actually not the Hollywood Terminator type, but it's more about misaligned automation. So I'll give you an abstract example. Let's say we have we're here in let's say we're in a hospital and we have an AI called Jarvis running everything. Parang ano na tayo, Iron Man era. We say, hey Jarvis, let's minimize cancer cases. And Jarvis says, okay, shall I now kill all the cancer patients? No, I mean, it sounds abstract, but that's exactly the problem with alignment. We can automate a task. Parang kanina, I have a lot of Power BI automation. That's relatively safe. The worst thing that could happen is you can have a mishap in a formula. It's not going to kill you. But as more and more of our day-to-day processes are getting automated, that's a problem. Finally, digital divide. We obviously need internet connectivity to run these tools. What about those without internet? We're probably in the single best spot in the entire Philippines for internet, no? Makati City, in AIM. So we have nothing to worry about. But the moment you cross the border to Region 4A, it gets really bad. Disinformation, obviously, fake news. Only because, and again, I want to underscore this, AI detectors are not reliable. The false positive rate is quite high. So be careful. You can actually use AI detectors to proof your writing against AI detectors because you can be sure that if you're studying, teachers are going to use it. But they're really not a reliable tool. And much worse for journalists. It's hard to filter fake news. And lastly, the climate impact. This is an issue about the carbon footprint of AI. We need GPUs to run these models. They suck up a lot of power. And right now, there is no move to come up with more efficient architecture. The punchline I want to share here is, with the exception of these last two, I feel these are still open problems. The others can be good news as well, depending on how we play it. No? So, syempre, some jobs will be displaced, but there will be more jobs created. Just like influencer, digital marketer, web developer, these jobs didn't exist before internet, and no one could have imagined them. There will be jobs, no? Like that data annotation work is the first of many jobs that will be created. Knowledge, you can use these large language models to compress knowledge, get it on the fly. Some people are already using it in lieu of Google. Just be careful about hallucinations. Creativity, innovation. Differential privacy is an interesting topic. Maybe we can talk about it in another meetup. This is how you use AI to create synthetic data, so that you can protect the original data but still analyze it. Because usually, as I'm sure some of you know, the biggest enemy of data analysts and business intelligence is the data privacy officer. They'll stop you from using data. But what if you could synthesize data, no? Lalo na this personal data? And of course, productivity and convenience. So this is the gamut of what it means to talk about AI safety and AI ethics. This is not meant to be super technical, nakatakot tingnan eh. But there are two major groups of architectures that are prevalent now in generative. No? One is called transformers, that's one on the left. No? And the other is called diffusion. Why am I spending time explaining this? They are what dominates the world of generative AI now. So transformers are the underlying architecture behind ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, etc. The diffusion models naman, these are Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, Pika Labs, Kria, etc. They work slightly differently. It's important to distinguish. So the transformer, in a nutshell, these are algorithms that generate sequences of tokens. Tokens can be words, can be sentences. So if you say, hi, how are you? That's a sequence. It should know enough to say, I am fine. Because it was trained on many. Sequences don't need to be words pala. That's why when people announce Sora, if you heard of Sora, that's a text-to-video model. It's actually a combination of both. It uses diffusion to generate an image, and it uses a transformer to generate a sequence of images. Kaya naging video. So anytime you have a time series of anything, transformer yun. The diffusion naman works, has similar mechanisms, but the goal is to match labels with tokens. No? So a label can be cat, or an orange cat, or an orange cat on the beach. So these are labels. And what diffusion will do is replicate that, let's say for images, because that's how it was trained. No? Parang, they got an algorithm to ingest many, many images, and then you have these people in the third world like us labeling them. And then the labels were re-ingested back so that you have a combined data set. So now if you have Stable Diffusion or Midjourney, you can literally write a story and it will render it. Or you can specify specific art styles, like chiaroscuro or baroque or classical, whatever you want, photorealistic. These are all labels. Now, why is it important to distinguish both? Because right now, parang when everyone says Gen AI, they just refer to ChatGPT. They forget that there's another equally complicated set in the image generation tools. But in a nutshell, the ethics starts here. What kind of data was ingested? So back to good old-fashioned data quality tayo. And how are the models being prompted? And I don't know how many of you actually respect prompt engineering. I'm here to tell you that it is not useless. It is the core of how these models work. You need to know how to prompt it properly. Baka in the near future, it may not be necessary because you can prompt it anything, that's also where all the bad things start. You can prompt an image of a Nazi soldier, and Gemini, because of all of the biased data that comes in it, starts to give you black soldiers and women soldiers because it was programmed to be diverse. On the flip side, you can go to Midjourney and say, give me a journalist, and 3 out of the 4 images are men. All of them are white. Not because it was intentionally malicious, because the data. Baka most of the journalist pictures were in fact white men. So we need to be mindful of that. And second, how are the models getting prompted? The third part is the external world. So the first two has to do with generating content, which can be bad. Pero as long as you keep it to yourself, shouldn't matter naman. No? But once you bring these content to the external world and start using it in a bad way, that's when things happen. Pornography, deep fakes, start discriminating on people, another thing to be mindful of, and maybe this is something I want to bring home now. So there are many types of people who interact with AI. Most of you are probably a builder. You're tweaking models, you're using software. But I'm here to tell you that we need to also train the users, the planners, and the trainers, lalo the trainers. So I'm very grateful, my friend Tony Kua, he's actually taking the time to teach you. I would actually encourage you to teach others. That's the only way we get over all of this. Because if we're only focused on builders, we did a recent survey in IBPAP now. The audience was 70% users, 20% planners, that's 90% already. 8% are trainers, and only 2% are builders. So I would imagine this small group here, ito na yung builders within the next 10 kilometers of Makati on a Saturday. We're a very, very small group. But then Gen AI affects, broadly speaking, everyone. So we need to find ways of reaching out. So when we talk about ethics, again, I don't want to get too deep, but there are some recurring principles if you read the UNESCO, you read the ISO. Has to do with the way these models work. Number one, are they fair? Kasi nga bias yung data. And if it is not fair, how do we make them fair? Okay. Are we transparent? I'm sure there are a growing number of people who don't admit they're using ChatGPT anymore. It's becoming normal for them. But then later they get caught if they publish a paper tas nandun yung as a large language model, they actually found it on the paper. So that's a big problem. And then even if you're caught, are you accountable for what you published? Like in the art sector, they're saying we should not be liable for copyright because it was the model that generated the picture. And yet you want to claim credit as an artist. So there's a little bit of a double standard there. These models should always have human oversight. And finally, the accuracy of the data. Actually, if people are worried about hallucination, let me be the first to tell you, these models don't do anything but hallucinate. It just so happens that 90% of the time, the hallucination makes sense. And then there's a small percentage where it doesn't make sense. And it has to do with either the data or the way it's prompted. So never mind all of these mga Hollywood, like people are saying, oh, these models are capable of deception, or these models are not reliable. I can tell you, without exception, that's because of a wrong prompt or wrong data. Ganun lang yun. And yet people are blind to it. This is a framework that I'm espousing. I call it 4Es. Because I feel that we want to regulate these tools, but we don't want to limit the innovation. Ganun lang naman, di ba? But we need multidisciplinary discussions. First, we need to really be conscious of the engineering. That's why I started my talk on 2 types of architectures, 2 types of algorithms. Rarely discussed. I was in the House committee hearing almost 4 weeks ago on AI regulation. Hindi pa sila nag-agree on what AI means. And that's where you guys come in. You guys know what it means, or we know what it means. We should be sending that information out to legislation. Then education. Siyempre, it's good to have builder meetups like this. We certainly need more. But we need to find ways of educating the mass market. We want to be like Finland. Finland educated 1% of their population in AI back before the pandemic. 1% of the Filipinos is 1 million, at least. I'm sure mabibilang mo less than 1,000 yung builder population. So we're far behind. When we talk about enforcement, this is the laws that we need to promote. We actually need laws to police abuse. Let's not, get around it. Like the Data Privacy Act and the Anti-Cybercrime Law, they're there to police abuse. But we need an equal number of incentives naman. Like, for example, where are the grants for AI research? Where are the competitions? Where are the hackathons? No? I mean, I'm sure it's fun to do this for bragging rights, but people, sabi nga ni Sir Tony, we need to make money. No? And if people will pay you to do better algorithms, pay you to do better research, would you do it? I think you would. Unfortunately, most of us are living in a dual, parang Batman life. We have our day job, which we use to buy bread and pay for the electric bill. And then we have the passion, which is this stuff. Sana ma-merge yung dalawa. That means somebody has to be able to pay for innovation, because other countries do it. And finally, the ethics. It can be very murky, but I just wanted to point out, ethics doesn't have to be highfalutin. It's just simply risk, compliance, and your values. What kind of person are you? And sometimes, and I consider myself a part of this, the tendency is to maximize profit lang. And I spent a great deal of my own career in the nonprofit world. People can only do stuff for free so long. So I'm very passionate about paid training also. Yeah, take as much free training as you want. But if you don't sustain, like AIM is not free, if you don't sustain trainers, no one will teach. Then you guys need to be able to teach also for a profit. That's a great career to be able to teach. So, let me give you that as a challenge. No? I would love to wake up one day soon where everyone is happily teaching each other, happily paying each other to teach, get rid of all these scammy providers. Sige, that's a good question. So the question was, machine learning, very important. How do you get into it? Well, the obvious path is to start with data science. No? But here, I'll give you a caveat. And of course, we're in data science land. Just because you study data science doesn't mean you will become a data scientist immediately. So there is kind of this path. No? And most of you actually are already staring at this answer earlier. One of the most in-demand skills is Power BI. It used to be Tableau. It's not Power BI. It's like an upgrade from Excel. Because if you are aware of how data is visualized and processed, then you build algorithms. The reason why I brought up the 2 types of algorithms earlier is most of the data science curricula focuses on discriminant algorithms. Kasi yun yung popular. Not many people looking at generative algorithms. Like, I'll mention some, it might sound Greek to you. Learn about autoencoders, learn about transformers, learn about GANs. And good news is, you don't have to go far. You can reach out to me, you can go to YouTube, they're readily available. So, the data science track is obviously still there. Subset of it is data analysts, which includes BI developers, data developers, Excel analysts. Lahat yan is a path to machine. You can do machine learning on Excel. Have you tried that? Oh man, yun pala dapat yung topic ko. Machine learning on Excel. Sige, watch out for that. Then you have data engineers. I'm a big fan of Data Engineering Pilipinas. Only because even if you applied as a data analyst, maybe 7 out of 10 times you will be doing data engineering. cleaning data, establishing ETL scripts, mga ganyan. That's data engineering stuff. And the big difference pa between data engineering and data analyst or data scientist, I think there's rarely, I can't think of one, there's no data engineering bachelor's or master's degree. It's a very applied subject, which is good. Because you really get to talk to people to learn their craft from the ground. I think at some point there will be one, pero yun. No? So data engineer, data scientist, data analyst, don't discount the role of, I would call data stewards. It's kind of an abandoned topic na no, sa AAT. These are people who are doing data gathering, who are doing, even good old-fashioned survey gathering people. That's the source of the data. Can you imagine if you can combine data gathering and data analysis with Power BI? You're already a full-fledged marketing research agency. That's pretty much all they do. Then you just add your diplomas for credibility.
Okay, I would like to introduce myself. I'm a student and ambitious manager of the School of Innovation, Technology, and Entrepreneurship. Again, welcome to AIM. So, this is the program curriculum. The total is 47 units. It's a 15-month full-time program. 24 units or 4 courses. We have 1/4 of the curriculum is business and management courses. We have data science selected if you want to focus on a specific domain of data science. And we have a capsule.
So for our capstone, it's very unique. You will be part of a learning team, 3 to 4 members, and you will be working for a company. And that company will actually pay AIM. Depends on the company if they will be paying you. There are students who gets paid, and there are students who just gets an allowance, meaning transportation or lodging. But the essence is you will be working on a real data science project for this specific company. You will be solving real-life business problems with the capstone. And this is 2 full terms. And you have to present this publicly to graduate. And most of the time, these companies hire the students that do their capstone with their company. Because they will be presenting you with their challenge, and you will be presenting them on how you will solve that and your recommendations using data science. Of course, you will be mentored and supervised by our very own data scientist here in AIM. The panel interview would be our academic program director or any of our data science professors here and even the school head. So the first step is to actually get a good grade from our assessment exam. The assessment exam will have general mathematics and logical reasoning, calculus, algebra, computational statistics, and programming. So yun yung 5. So we have that. So it's an 85 item, so we are looking at 46. Oh, okay, good question. No? Usually we charge $50 for the exam. We charge that. It's an exam created by our data scientist, but I think part of what Neri was able to negotiate is that for members of Power BI, we are waiving the examination fee already. Okay? For the exam, just to give an idea, you might find it intimidating. But our recommendation or how we see it is that just go through with it. We allow another retake. So for example, you don't get the mark that we are looking for, we allow a retake. Why? Because for example, you are working professionals already and you don't use this on a daily basis. So naturally, makakalimutan nyo siya. But if you go through with it and then na-refresh siya, then you take it, then usually you get a higher grade. So the very important part of that is actually the general mathematics and logical reasoning. Kasi pag wala yung foundation na yun, may hihirapan talaga kayo sa lahat. Alright? So, wait lang. So, we accept fresh graduates as long as you have really graduated already. So, may mga ina-accept kami, for example, their formal graduation would be this July, but they already finished the program. So, we accept those. But we limit yung fresh graduates in our cohorts. Why? It would be unfair for the working professionals. Because the point of having a master's degree or working here at AIM is not just learning from your professors, but also learning from your peers. Where are our graduates now? So these are the companies where our graduates usually go to in the private sector. So madami from Aboitiz, Ayala, of course, Globe, BDO, Nestle, even Canva. Well, data science is domain agnostic. Kahit saan siya, even pharma, even real estate, you can use data science. And of course, we have in the public sector as well. So we have graduates who are working for this public sector.